C51, a wonderful bill. Such a strange bill. You know, a little bit of history here on C51. Originally, back in 1907, a bill was produced in the House of Parliament to stop people from altering foods. That's what it was called, Food Alteration Act. And then in about 1920, it was changed to being Food and Drug Act. The reason for that was because by this time, drugs were beginning to become a little bit more widely used and more powerful and more dangerous. So that they were combined. I'm not quite sure why foods were combined with drugs, except that foods have always, for thousands of years, the Chinese have known the healing powers of food. So I suppose some kind of faint logic says that if food has healing powers, then it should be combined with drugs. So now, up until 1958, things got more and more complicated, drugs got more and more complicated, and food got less complicated and maybe a bit more twisted. Now we have this situation where Bill C51 comes along and it does some wonderful things. I'm going to blow your mind a little bit. In the Hazardous Goods Act, there were 4 groups that all come under the same classification. I'd like you to listen to these. Explosives, pesticides, food and drugs, and nuclear waste that's radioactive. Now, 3 of those 4 cannot be transported anywhere in Canada without dangerous goods signs on them. My question is really quite simple. Since now health foods and drugs are being classified together, and drugs should actually have those classifications on them, I'm not going to argue that, but since now natural foods, natural health foods, things, simple things like tomatoes, grapes, apples, oranges, anything that's got a vitamin in it, garlic, mint that you grow in your garden, all have food subsidized type contents. They now, if this law passes, should be carried by vehicles with dangerous goods signs on them. Which makes me chuckle a little bit, because people who get their food delivered by those little thrifty vans that are around and about all the time would have a fit if a thrifty van showed up with dangerous goods signs all over it to deliver their food. Is this ridiculous? Yes, but it's right there in the bill. Follow the lines, follow the signs as I did. It takes you right to the hazardous waste, and there it is. Now, why something like tomatoes or oranges or apples should be classified along with explosives, pesticides, nuclear waste that's radioactive, I have no idea. Balance this against aspirin. I'm not going to say any particular brand, I don't need to. Aspirin. Many doctors will no longer even prescribe it for people who have heart problems because it's not a good drug. It's a very dangerous drug. It probably wouldn't even pass even Canada Health Acts, Health Protection Department today. And yet you can go to a news agency and you can buy aspirin. Something's a little twisted here, isn't it? What's the official policy on C51 by Canadian Action Party? It's too new for a policy to have actually come in fully into place, but what it simply boils down to this: is this an infringement of the people's rights? And if it is, then we're against it. And what is really behind this? It's hard to tell, but it would appear that it's a pharmaceutical company grab for everything that anybody intakes in any way, shape or form. And just to point it a little bit even more stupidly is that every food conveying piece of transport that goes on the BC ferries should now have dangerous goods signs on it. And if they're in the same classification as explosives, pesticides and nuclear waste that's radioactive, they can't travel on the BC ferry. And if that classification takes a little bit further, let's say you want to take a trip from Vancouver to Victoria on the BC ferry and you have 4 oranges in your possession. That means you should have placards on your car. And if they don't like the fact that you're carrying that stuff, they could confiscate it, charge you $5 million and 2 years in jail, or 2 years in jail, just for carrying 4 oranges on the BC ferry. Stretching it? Maybe, but that's what's in the act. Do you like it? No. Canadian Action Party like it? No. Freedom for the people to think for themselves is really important. To have that choice to look after your own health is one of the fundamentals of any free country. We think we're free? Okay, let's not go anywhere near Bill C51, because the freedom that you have to look after your body is gone with C51.